The flash bulbs popped. The microphones extended. And when they asked N'Golo Kanté, "Why you left for so little money?" the answer he gave changed how everyone in that room looked at Leicester City forever. July 2016. Press conference room at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea Football Club. The air thick with camera flashes and the hum of reporters checking their recording devices. 23 journalists packed into a space meant for 15. Everyone wanted the story. Everyone wanted the quote. N'Golo Kanté sat at the table in a simple dark training jacket. No flashy watch. No designer brands. Just Kanté. Small frame. Quiet eyes. The man who had just won the Premier League with Leicester City in the greatest underdog story football had ever seen, and then left for Chelsea for what the tabloids called a bargain price. £35 million. In a market where mediocre players moved for 50 million. Where potential moved for 70. Where hype moved for 90. The question everyone wanted to ask was obvious: why so cheap? But nobody had asked it yet. The first 10 minutes had been safe questions. How does it feel to join Chelsea? What are your ambitions? Do you think you can replicate last season's form? Kanté answered each one the same way. Quietly. Briefly. With that slight accent that made English sound softer than it was. He didn't sell himself. He didn't hype the transfer. He just existed. Calmly. In a room designed to make people uncomfortable. Then came the question. A reporter from the back row. Mid-40s. Expensive suit. The kind of journalist who'd built a career on asking the question everyone else was too polite to ask. He stood up, microphone in hand, notepad ready. "N'Golo," he began, his voice carrying that particular tone of manufactured friendliness that barely concealed the blade underneath. "The fee that brought you to Chelsea, 35 million, is being called one of the bargains of the decade. Some are saying Leicester practically gave you away." A few reporters shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't a question yet. This was set up. "My question is," the reporter continued, leaning forward slightly, "why do you think you left for so little? Did Leicester not value you properly? Or did you push for a lower fee to force the move?" The room went quiet. Kanté's face changed. Not dramatically. Not in a way the cameras would catch as a GIF or a screenshot. But anyone watching closely saw it. The slight tightening around his eyes, the way his jaw set, the subtle lean backward as if the question had physical weight. His right hand rose slowly. Palm forward. Fingers together. The universal gesture for stop. Not aggressive. Not defensive. Just stop. Kanté didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "Before I answer," Kanté said, his voice quiet but somehow filling the entire room, "I need to tell you something about Leicester City. About what that club means. About why this question." He paused, looking down at his hands. On the table in front of him, barely visible among the microphones and water bottles, sat a small folded piece of paper. A note. He touched it briefly with his index finger. "This question shows you don't understand," he finished. The reporter's microphone lowered slightly. He hadn't expected pushback. Not from Kanté. Not from the quietest man in football. "I don't mean disrespect," the reporter started, but Kanté's raised hand didn't move. "Let me explain something," Kanté said. "May I explain something?" The press officer beside him nodded, though protocol said Kanté could refuse to answer. Could move to the next question. Could end the conference entirely if he wanted. But Kanté never took the easy way out. 2 years ago, he began. I was playing in France. League 2. Not League 1. The second division. I was happy there. I loved football. I thought maybe one day I could play in League 1. That was my dream. Just League 1. Just the top division in my country. The reporters were typing now. This wasn't the answer they expected. Then Leicester City called. Kanté continued. A club in England I had never heard of. In a league I watched on television but never imagined playing in. They offered me a contract. Not a big contract. Not a glamorous contract. But they offered me a chance. He looked up at the reporter who'd asked the question. Direct eye contact. No anger. Just truth. Do you know what the owner told me? Mr. Vichai. When I signed. He said, we don't need stars. We need good people who work hard. You are both. He shook my hand. He met my parents. He treated me like family before I kicked a single ball. The room was absolutely silent now. 23 journalists, and nobody typing. Nobody coughing. Nobody checking their phones. That season, Kanté said, everyone said we would be relegated. Everyone. Every expert. Every prediction. We were supposed to fail. But Mr. Vichai never treated us like we were going to fail. He believed. The fans believed. The city believed. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. Kanté's hand finally lowered from its stopping gesture. He placed both palms flat on the table, on either side of that folded note. We won the league, he said simply. 5,000 to 1 odds. Impossible. But we did it. And do you know what happened after? The reporter shook his head slightly. Every big club in Europe called my agent. Kanté continued. Paris Saint-Germain. Arsenal. Manchester United. Real Madrid. All of them. Offering huge money. Offering to make me a star. Offering to double, triple what Leicester paid for me. He paused, letting that sink in. And Leicester City, Kanté said, his voice dropping even quieter, forcing everyone to lean in to hear, could have demanded any price they wanted. They could have said 100 million. They could have started a bidding war. They could have made me the most expensive midfielder in history. The reporter's face had changed. The aggressive lean was gone. He was standing upright now, microphone hanging loosely in his hand. But they didn't, Kanté said. Mr. Vichai called me into his office. Just him and me. No agents. No lawyers. No press officers. He said, N'Golo, you gave us everything last season. You could have saved your energy for a bigger club. You could have protected yourself from injury. But you ran every sprint. You made every tackle. You gave us your heart. Kanté's eyes glistened slightly. Not quite tears. But close. He said, now it's time for you to move forward. We won't stand in your way. We won't demand a price that stops your dream. We will ask only what is fair. Fair for you, fair for us, fair for football. The folded note on the table caught the light from the camera flashes. Kanté noticed several reporters looking at it. This, he said, picking up the note carefully, is what he gave me that day. Handwritten. In Thai and English. My agent translated. It says, the price of a player is not his value. You are priceless to Leicester. But you deserve your dream. He held it up briefly. Long enough for the cameras to catch it. Then he folded it again and placed it back on the table. So when you ask why I left for so little, Kanté said, looking directly at the reporter again, you are asking the wrong question. The right question is, why did Leicester City treat me with so much dignity when they could have treated me like a commodity? Away from the cameras, Kanté made a choice no one expected. The reporter sat down slowly. His notepad remained closed. He didn't write anything down. Some moments aren't for articles. They're for remembering. But Kanté wasn't finished. I want to tell you something else, he said, addressing the entire room now. Something I have never said publicly. About the transfer fee. About the 35 million. Every phone in the room came up. Recording. This was the quote. This was the headline. 10 million pounds of my signing bonus, Kanté said, his voice steady and clear. I gave back to Leicester City. The room erupted. Not in applause. In shock. In disbelief. Reporters talking over each other. What? Did he just say 10 million? Kanté raised his hand again. The room quieted immediately. Not to the club directly, he clarified. Mr. Vichai would never accept it. He would have been insulted. So I worked with my agent. We created a fund for Leicester City's youth academy, for coaching, for facilities, for scholarships for children who cannot afford to play football. He looked down at his hands. Mr. Vichai built something special at Leicester. Kanté continued. Not just a football club. A family. A belief. He gave a boy from France a chance when nobody else would. He let me leave with dignity when he could have kept me. The least I could do was make sure other children get the same chance he gave me. The reporter who'd asked the original question stood up again. His face had changed completely. The smugness was gone. The gotcha journalism was gone. He looked like a man who just learned something about himself that he didn't like. Mr. Kanté, he said, his voice rough. I apologize. I asked the wrong question. I asked it the wrong way. No apology needed, Kanté interrupted gently. You asked what everyone wanted to know. Now everyone knows. The price was not too low. The price was exactly right. Because it allowed me to move forward and allowed Leicester to keep their honor. Both can be true. He smiled slightly. That small, genuine Kanté smile that made him look about 12 years old despite being a Premier League champion. Football is not just about money, he said. It is about respect. It is about remembering who helped you. It is about being a good person before being a good player. But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it. Forever. The press conference should have ended there. The Chelsea press officer was already standing, ready to thank everyone and close the session. But something happened that no one expected. The reporter who'd asked the question, the one whose name badge read Marcus Whitfield, Daily Telegraph, did something that violated every rule of press conferences. He stepped forward, past the other reporters, right up to the table where Kanté sat. Security moved to intercept, but Kanté waved them off. Marcus extended his hand across the table. Not for a handshake. He was holding something. A business card. Mr. Kanté, Marcus said, and his voice was shaking slightly. I've been covering football for 22 years. I've interviewed hundreds of players. Most of them tell me what their PR team wrote for them. Most of them see journalists as obstacles or tools. He placed the business card on the table. You just taught me something I should have learned 2 decades ago, Marcus continued. That the story isn't always where I think it is. That sometimes the question reveals more about the questioner than the answer reveals about the subject. Kanté looked at the business card but didn't pick it up. I have a son, Marcus said. He's 12. He plays football at his school. He's not very good. He's small. Like you were. And I've been telling him that if he wants to make it in football, he needs to be aggressive. To stand out. To make noise. His voice cracked slightly. I'm going to tell him about today, Marcus said. About how the quietest man in football taught a room full of journalists what strength actually looks like. About how you could have embarrassed me for that question, but instead you educated me. About how you gave away £10 million and nobody knew because you don't use charity as PR. He stepped back. Thank you, he said simply. My son will hear about N'Golo Kanté. Not the player. The man. Kanté stood up then. He walked around the table, which you're not supposed to do during press conferences. He approached Marcus and shook his hand properly. Tell your son, Kanté said quietly, that being small is not a weakness. Tell him that football needs all types of players. Tell him that the most important thing is not how loud you are, but how present you are. Being in the right place at the right time. That is everything. The cameras caught it all. The handshake. The moment. But what they couldn't catch, what the photographs and videos would never show, was what Marcus whispered in return. I'll tell him about today, The day I learned that real power doesn't speak loudly. Kanté nodded once. Then he returned to his seat, picked up the folded note from Mr. Vichai, and carefully placed it in his jacket pocket. Over his heart. The press conference ended. No more questions. The journalists filed out quietly, many of them looking at their notebooks differently, wondering what other stories they missed by asking the wrong questions. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. 3 months later, Marcus Whitfield published a column titled, "The Question I Wish I'd Never Asked." It became one of the most read football pieces of the decade. He never asked another gotcha question again. The Youth Academy Fund Kanté created at Leicester has helped over 200 children afford professional coaching. None of them know who funds it. The plaques say, "Anonymous donor." And the note from Vichai Srivaddhanaprabha? Kanté still carries it. In every jacket. Every match. Every day. The price of a player is not his value. You are priceless.